started with a whisper and ended with a buzz. Around midnight, Mia turned to me with that half-smile she always used when she didn't want questions. "I'm just gonna step outside for a minute," she said, grabbing her phone and sliding on the oversized cardigan she kept by the door. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying not to sound suspicious but failing. Something in her voice was off. Too casual. Like she'd rehearsed it. "Yeah," she said, already halfway out. "It's nothing. Just need air." She didn't take her purse. No keys. No shoes. Just her phone, her cardigan, and that calm, practiced tone that left no space for follow-up. I waited at the window, arms crossed, pretending to be interested in the shadows on the front lawn. A minute passed, then 5, then 15. At some point, I stopped counting and just stood there, phone in hand, watching the screen for a text that never came. There was no sound of an engine pulling away, no Uber notification ping from her phone on the counter. Just silence, and the soft throb of my chest tightening. I told myself I wouldn't check the time anymore, that I wouldn't pace the hallway or refresh her location like some desperate cliché. But I did, over and over. At 1:08 a.m., her phone was still sharing location. Downtown, somewhere near the river, but she'd disabled the exact pin. Privacy setting. Something she'd never used before. I stared at the pulsing blur on the screen and tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe a friend needed help. Maybe she'd run into car trouble. Maybe this was just Mia being spontaneous, and I was being controlling. But none of it added up. She'd never walked out in silence before. She was many things. Distracted, distant, lately cold, but never stealthy. Never like this. I sat on the couch, lights off, scrolling through old photos like they might soothe the rising panic. Birthday parties, hiking trips, her smiling on that cabin porch we rented in Vermont. The last time I remember us really laughing. There was a stillness in her eyes now that hadn't always been there. A detachment. And I'd noticed it, but I hadn't wanted to face it. Until tonight. Around 3:47 a.m., the intercom buzzed. I flinched like I'd been electrocuted. The sudden sound, after hours of silence, jolted me off the couch. I hit the button to activate the camera feed, already knowing whatever I saw would change things. Permanently, there she was, on the screen, Mia, barefoot, standing outside the gate with mascara streaks under her eyes and a rumpled hoodie bunched in her arms. It wasn't hers, too big, too faded, with a logo I didn't recognize. Behind her, the headlights of a pickup truck still running in the street flickered in the camera's lens flare. A man's silhouette in the driver's seat. She didn't turn to wave, didn't even glance back, just buzzed in like she had every right to come home like this. I watched the footage 3 times before I opened the door. Not because I needed to, I just couldn't believe it. When she walked in, she didn't even flinch. Didn't look surprised to see me standing in the hallway. She tucked the hoodie under her arm and gave a quiet, "Hey," like she'd just gone out to grab something from the car. "You were gone for almost 5 hours, I said, my voice even barely above a whisper. "I know," she said, brushing past me. "That was a pickup truck. Who's the guy?" "Just a friend." I didn't want to get into it. She was already climbing the stairs. "I'm tired, Evan. Can we talk in the morning?" No apology, no guilt, just indifference wrapped in exhaustion. In the kitchen, I stood for a long time with both hands pressed against the counter, trying to figure out if I should say more, yell, demand, cry. But none of it felt right. The weight of the night had already pressed me into silence. I looked down and realized my knuckles were white from gripping the edge of the counter. She didn't come back downstairs. At some point, I poured myself a glass of water I didn't drink. Walked into the living room I didn't sit down in. Stared out the window like I was waiting for a version of her that would never return. At 6:03 a.m., I wrote the note. "Mia, I'm not doing this anymore. Whatever version of you came home last night, she's not someone I recognize or trust. I'm stepping out of the way so you can have the life you've already chosen. Take care of yourself. Evan." I placed the note on the kitchen island, next to her mug. The same one she always used when she claimed she couldn't sleep. I even filled it with water like she'd done 100 times before. A small, stupid courtesy I didn't know how to turn off. I didn't pack much. Just the essentials. A bag of clothes, my laptop, and the leather journal my brother gave me 2 Christmases ago that I'd never had a reason to use until now. Before I walked out, I glanced once more at the stairs, half expecting her to come down, to stop me, say something, anything. But the house was silent, just like it had been all night. I closed the door behind me softly, no slam, no scene, just quiet, like the echo of something breaking in reverse. Outside, the sky was a pale shade of gray, the kind that tells you the sun is close but not ready. I sat in my car for a while, key in the ignition, headlights off. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even curse. I just stared at my hands and wondered when exactly I stopped being part of her world. Not last night. No, it had started before that. This was just the moment it stopped pretending. By the time I pulled onto the shoulder of an empty grocery store parking lot that morning, the silence in the car had become something physical, heavy, like a second skin. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the sunrise bleeding over the roof of the strip mall, watching the world carry on as if nothing had collapsed. But something had, and I wasn't ready to pretend otherwise. I left my car running while I opened the Notes app on my phone. Not for a message, not for revenge, just to list, to start pulling apart the weeks that had led here. A timeline, I told myself. A framework. Something to hold on to while everything else spun out. The first entry I typed. Week 1, second phone shows up. Work line. Bullsh *T. I remember when she got it. Said it was for a client project. Said it made her job easier to keep work separate from her personal number. I nodded, trying to be supportive. But when I asked why it never rang while she was home, she shrugged and mumbled something about muting notifications during personal time. Sounded logical enough at the time. But now it felt calculated. Next entry. Week 2, changed lock screen. New password on her laptop. Stopped using the shared calendar. Mia had always been casual about tech. She never cared about locking her devices. Never even signed out of email unless I reminded her to. Then one day, everything was sealed tight. Her phone screen stopped lighting up when texts came in. Her laptop started asking for a password every time it closed. New work policy, she said, sipping coffee like nothing had changed. They're getting stricter about data security. I didn't question it then, not out loud, but my gut stirred. Next. Week 3, gym nights with no bag, no schedule, no explanation. Always came home without breaking a sweat. I started noticing things, small at first. She stopped wearing her smartwatch to work out. Her gym shoes stayed by the door, untouched. She left the house in jeans and a hoodie, not leggings or trainers. Said she was doing light stuff, or classes that don't require gear. She'd leave after dinner, stay out for 2 or 3 hours, and come back looking. Not tired, exactly. Just detached. Like she'd been somewhere else entirely. I remember the first night I caught the scent on her coat. Cologne. Not hers. Not mine. Something musky and expensive, the kind that lingers in fabric long after a person has gone. I brought it up casually. New perfume. And she blinked at me, caught off guard. Oh, she said, sniffing her sleeve. Probably someone from the gym. The lockers are crammed. That moment stayed with me for days. It played over and over in my head like a scene in a movie I couldn't fast forward through. Her hesitation. The way her fingers fidgeted with her zipper. That strange flicker in her eyes. Defensive, but tired. Next. Week 4. Late night Uber charges. Past midnight. Same 2 locations. Always when I was working late or traveling. I didn't go looking through our bank account with suspicion. I was paying off a credit card and noticed the charges by accident. 2 Ubers in 1 week. Both around 1:30 a.m. One pickup from downtown. One drop-off near a residential area I didn't recognize. When I asked, she brushed it off. Said she split a ride with a friend after drinks. Said she didn't want to wake me up. Except I was out of town that night. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. My silence was turning into a reflex. Not fear, not passivity, just calculation. I needed more than shadows and intuition. And then there was her smile. Not the real one I hadn't seen in months. I'm talking about the new one. The half smile she wore like armor, tilted and practiced. She used it to dismiss concern, to bypass anything that might require honesty. I started calling it the switch, because it flipped something off in me every time I saw it. I added more entries. Stopped sharing memes, songs, anything. No laughter. No small talk. Shut down when I asked about her day. Stopped touching me. No casual hand on the back. No hair ruffle. Nothing. Looked at me like I was furniture. In the way. Inconvenient. The most damning signs weren't dramatic. They weren't movie-level betrayals with lipstick on collars or secret phone calls. No, the signs were in the quiet. In the way she stopped saying my name. In how she started referring to things as mine instead of ours. My room. My schedule. My weekend. It wasn't just that she'd changed. It was that she no longer wanted me to witness it. I sat in that car until my phone's battery hit 2%. The list kept growing. Not all of it made sense, not yet. But there was a pattern forming, something undeniable. Something loud in its quietness. I scrolled back up and highlighted the entry that haunted me most. The way she stopped looking at me when she thought I wasn't looking. Later that week, I found myself in the laundry room folding clothes I didn't remember agreeing to wash. One of her hoodies, an old gray one with thumb holes, was inside out. I shook it loose, and something fell from the pocket. A receipt. 2 drinks. 1 appetizer. 11:14 p.m. A bar downtown we'd never been to together. I didn't recognize the server name on the slip, but the payment was via Apple Pay, her card. I stared at the timestamp for a long time. That was the night she told me she'd fallen asleep at her sister's house after a girls' night. She hadn't answered my texts for hours. Told me her phone had died. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I made a copy and added the photo to my locked folder. I had beg *N archiving. Quietly, methodically, like someone preparing a case. My old self might have snapped. Might have shouted, accused, demanded. But this version of me, the one she'd slowly taught to doubt his own instincts, was playing a longer game. Because it wasn't about catching her in a single lie. It was about watching her build a new life behind my back. One brick at a time. And realizing, slowly and brutally, that she wasn't even trying to hide the construction anymore. I started sleeping in the spare room. At first, I said it was because of work calls, clients in different time zones, late-night Zoom meetings. She didn't ask questions. Didn't offer to keep me company. Just nodded and went back to scrolling on her phone. From the guest room, I could hear her sometimes. Soft laughter around midnight, always muffled. Sometimes it came from the kitchen. Sometimes from outside on the back porch. I stopped checking. It hurt less not knowing. But only slightly. One night, I walked past the primary bedroom on my way to the bathroom. The door was ajar. She was sitting cross-legged on the bed, phone tilted away from the door, whispering. Not giggling. Whispering. And smiling that new smile. I stopped and stared, unnoticed. And I realized something that sent a chill through me. I didn't want to know who was on the other end of the line, because whoever it was had already replaced me. Not in name, not in obligation, but in int asterisk Macy. In access. Mia used to tell me everything. What she had for lunch. What song was stuck in her head. How a barista spelled her name wrong. Every meaningless detail of her day. Now I was lucky to get a fine. If I asked how work was. I went back to the guest room, closed the door, and stared at the ceiling until my eyes blurred. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, but because I knew. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I had enough to understand what came next wouldn't be a conversation. It would be a decision. I didn't find the proof because I went looking for it. I found it because I was looking for a tax file. It was the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. One of those gray, quiet days where time moves like wet concrete. I was working from the dining table, trying to hunt down last year's income forms to submit to the accountant. Mia had done the paperwork, as always. She kept everything tidy, uploaded it to her tablet, then synced it to our shared cloud folder. At least she used to. I tapped the screen, scrolling through her folders. For a while, it was the usual. Invoices, W-2s, old resumes. But then, just below a folder labeled Budget Projections, I noticed something new. The folder name was vague. _tel_March. No emojis. No tags. Nothing that screamed attention. At first, I assumed it was a work thing. Project title. She worked in consulting. Abbreviations were second nature to her. But the last modification date was from the previous weekend, when she told me she was at a networking brunch with her old college friends. I hesitated, not because I thought I was doing something wrong, but because deep down, I already knew what I was about to find, and part of me still wanted to be wrong. I tapped it open. Inside were over a dozen images, selfies, *TS videos. The first one was almost mundane. Mia smiling in the passenger seat of a car, hair pulled back, lips slightly parted. Not posed. Candid. Taken by someone else. I swiped to the next. Mia in a motel room, laying across a floral-patterned bedspread, her head resting on a man's shoulder. His face wasn't visible, just the edge of his jaw, his neck, the collar of a flannel shirt. A timestamp in the bottom corner. Saturday, 2:37 p.m. The next image hit harder. Their feet, tangled in a hammock, drinks in hand. Her toenails painted the soft lavender she only ever wore in the spring. A cheap motel key dangled from her index finger like an afterthought. Couldn't breathe. I didn't even know I'd stopped until my chest started to burn. I locked the screen, stared at the black reflection of my face, then unlocked it again and kept going. Another photo taken on our patio, the place I had built by hand last summer. I recognized the corner of our outdoor couch, the potted succulents she'd chosen for their neutral vibe. Her hand was visible on someone's thigh, the hem of her shirt riding up just slightly. His hand was on her knee, taken while I was away, on a work trip, the one where I'd sent her daily photos of sunsets from the hotel balcony, where she told me she missed me every night. In one of the images, I noticed the edge of a man's tattoo. Black ink, something circular, half covered by his sleeve. And then I saw it. A selfie of them standing outside a gas station. Mia was laughing, holding a Red Bull in one hand and flashing a peace sign with the other. Behind her, standing slightly back, was the man. Face visible. Aviators, shaggy dark hair, that same flannel shirt. And a small, familiar tattoo on his forearm. Colin. I hadn't seen him in over a year, but I remembered him. He was at Mia's office once, contractor, project liaison, something like that. They were friendly. I remember teasing her about it once. Is he flirting with you? She laughed it off. He's married. Kid, even. Apparently that wasn't a boundary. It was a shield. I sat back in my chair, the room spinning slightly. It wasn't just that she was cheating. It was how long she'd been doing it. How casually. I opened the calendar app. Swiped to the month view. There it was, buried among dentist appointments and fake meetings, little codes, entries like SP lunch / our drop, PT sesh 11A3P, GTR with C, offsite. C. Colin. GTR. God knows. Getaway trip route? She'd masked their entire affair in acronyms and shorthand, hiding in plain sight. I clicked over to her messages. The tablet was still linked to her cloud. Most apps were logged out, but not all. One chat thread stood out. Archived. Colin Work G Drive. I tapped it open. No pictures. Just texts. Dozens of them. Mia. Hotels confirmed. Same place. You still good for Sat? Colin. Yeah. Wife's at her mom's. Kid with in-laws. I'm clear. Mia. God. I hate how easy this is. Colin. Guilt's just evidence we're still human. Mia. You should write fortune cookies. Colin. You should be in bed. I didn't read the rest. I didn't need to. I backed up everything. Every photo. Every message. Every calendar entry. Not because I wanted to expose her, Not yet. But because I knew I would never get a confession. Mia would gaslight, dodge, minimize. She'd say it wasn't what it looked like. She'd say she was confused, lonely, trying to feel something. So I saved the facts. I put the tablet down. My hands were shaking. I couldn't tell if it was rage or grief. Probably both. My mouth tasted like metal. I stood up and walked outside, barefoot, onto the patio they'd used like it was theirs. The wind was soft that day. The kind of breeze that carries no urgency. The sun filtered through the clouds in stripes. I sat down on the edge of the couch and let the silence wrap around me. This wasn't the part where I confronted her. This was the part where I realized she was already gone. Not physically. Not yet. But emotionally, mentally, spiritually. She'd been leaving for months. I just hadn't been ready to see it. Now I couldn't unsee it. Later that evening, I started sorting. I created folders on my hard drive. Me_proof, legal_backup, Colin_ID. I copied everything over twice. One to the cloud. One to an encrypted USB I tucked under the floorboard in the guest room. Paranoid? Maybe. But I wasn't about to be blindsided in a courtroom by someone who had clearly spent weeks mastering deception. I also began collecting the little things. Bank statements, utility bills, notes from our shared accounts, photos from better years. Not to *p***nice, but to prepare. Mia came home around 8 that night. Hair damp, face fresh, smelled like lavender body wash and someone else's car. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag on the counter. "How was your day?" "Productive," I said. She smiled. The small, safe kind. "You eat?" "Yeah." She nodded, not asking what I had. Not offering to cook. Just went upstairs to shower again or pretend to. I sat at the table, my laptop open, cursor blinking over an email I never sent. To Mia. Richards. Work@gmail. Subject, timeline. "You lied. But I already know. I saw everything. Evan." I deleted the draft. This wasn't the time for confrontation. This was the time for quiet clarity. For control. For gathering every brick she'd taken from the foundation of our life and laying them out, piece by piece, until even she couldn't pretend the house hadn't already collapsed. There was a strange calm the morning after I found everything. Not the numb kind that follows heartbreak. I'd felt that before. This was something else. Colder, sort of quiet. Like when you wake up on the morning of a flight you've already packed for. No hesitation, no wondering. Just execution. I moved through the house like a tenant on the last day of a lease. Every step was deliberate. Every drawer I opened, every cabinet I scanned, I asked myself the same question. What do I need to take so I never have to come back here again? Mia was still asleep upstairs or pretending to be. The door to the master bedroom was closed, and I had no interest in what was on the other side of it. In the guest room, I spread my duffel bag across the bed. Folded clothes with machine precision. The bare minimum. Jeans, shirts, toiletries, documents. Everything else could stay. I didn't want reminders. I didn't want the hoodie she bought me from Big Sur, or the candle she said smelled like a Sunday morning. None of it felt real anymore. What I did want, what I needed, was proof. So I documented. Meticulously. *T after *T. Chat logs. Calendar entries. Email headers with timestamps. Bank withdrawals that lined up with motel check-ins. I took photos of the whiteboard in her office with scribbled notes that now seemed less like brainstorms and more like breadcrumbs. Then I turned to the paper trail. Credit card statements, Uber receipts, the log from the smart lock showing her 2 a.m. entries and exits. Even the dog-eared receipt from the bar I found in her hoodie last week went into a plastic folder labeled simply evidence. I wasn't trying to trap her. That would have implied a hunt. This wasn't a hunt. This was a record. An autopsy. The forensic accounting of a life that had quietly bled out while I was too polite to check for a pulse. I didn't leave a dramatic letter. Just a note. Folded and placed on the marble kitchen counter we'd picked out together last spring. Mia, I'm not staying for the explanation you think you owe me. I've seen what I need to see. Take care of yourself. Evan. No anger. No accusation. Just truth. The kind that hangs in the air heavier than screaming ever could. By the time I zipped up my bag, the sun was peeking through the back windows. It lit the space between us in soft orange, casting long shadows over the coffee table. A perfect morning for someone else's life. I carried my bag out the front door and didn't look back. Not at the porch where we used to drink wine, not at the windows I once strung Christmas lights around like it meant something. The driveway was cold under my shoes. My breath fogged in front of me. I got into my car and drove. No destination yet, just distance. I ended up at the parking garage near the supermarket we used to go to every Sunday. Level 3, corner space, out of the way, private enough to be invisible. I parked and turned off the engine but didn't get out, just sat there in silence. It hit me then. I didn't feel broken. I felt clean. It wasn't freedom, not yet, but it was detachment. And for the first time in months, I felt like I was observing my life from the outside, free of the script, free of the noise. I opened my notebook. Not the digital one, the leather-bound one my brother gave me years ago, the one I never thought I'd use for anything real. I titled the first page, Exit Plan, and I started writing. Secure finances. Transfer 50% from joint account to new solo account. Remove name from shared credit cards. Download 12 months of statements for legal reference. Change access. Reset passwords. Two-factor authentication on personal email, cloud, phone, bank. Remove her fingerprint from phone backup. Legal. Schedule consultation with family attorney. Ask about property separation. Upload proof of infidelity to shared folder for future use. Time-stamped, but undistributed. Housing. Check short-term rentals. Furnished, month to month. Set viewing appointments near work. Prioritize morning sun and wooden floors. Small comforts matter. Health. Refill prescription. Schedule annual physical, blood pressures probably wrecked. Pick up running again. 3 miles a day. Non-negotiable. Support. Call Jordan, brother. Tell him everything. Message Sam. Say yes to that beer. Find therapist. Even if it feels like overk * LL closure. Don't look at her social media. Don't check his. No more hypotheticals. Only facts. Only forward. I stopped after that. Closed the notebook. Sat back. Let myself breathe. The irony was, in doing all this to protect myself, I was realizing how much I'd already lost. The illusions I'd held on to. That she was stressed, overworked, emotionally distant but still present, were shredded. It wasn't distance I was grieving. It was absence. She had left me long before I ever packed a bag. Later that day, I checked the address Colin had once sent her. The one from the Uber receipt. I cross-referenced it with public listings. It was real. A 2-bedroom rental in the suburbs near Portland. Nothing fancy, but lived in. I opened Google Street View, zoomed in. There was a front porch, plastic tricycle leaning against the railing, a pair of nursing scrubs drying on the fence. Wife, kid, real life, his real life. And she'd folded herself into it like a tourist sneaking photos in a town she didn't live in. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. It wasn't just my world she'd broken. It was hers, too. Someone else was sleeping in a bed that had been lied to, raising a child under a roof built on false time cards and late-night rendezvous. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was systemic. Pattern. Practice. A ripple effect with consequences that reached far beyond my bruised ego. And suddenly I felt a shift. Not vengeance. Not rage. Just responsibility. That night I drafted a message. Hi. I'm writing to you not out of malice, but with quiet clarity. I have reason to believe you are unaware of something that directly affects your life and family. I'm not looking to cause a scene or escalate this, but I do believe in truth. If you're open to a calm, private conversation, I'm willing to share what I've learned. No pressure. No timeline. My intention is not to hurt, only to stop the quiet damage from growing. I signed it simply, Evan. I didn't send it right away. I stared at the blinking cursor, feeling the full weight of the choice. Once it left my hands, there was no taking it back. But keeping it in, letting the lie sit silently in someone else's house, like it had in mine, felt like complicity. I hit save. Not send. Not yet. But I knew I would. Because once you learn how to see the truth, you can't unsee it. And once you know someone else is living in the same silence you just escaped from, you have two choices. Walk away, or knock on the door. I waited 2 more days before sending the message. Not because I had doubts, I didn't. The proof was airtight. Mia's deception wasn't a one-off or a lapse in judgment. It was a system. But I held back because I knew the moment I sent that message, another world would split in two. And it wouldn't be mine this time. I kept thinking about the tricycle, the tiny plastic seat, the sun-faded handles. You don't buy something like that if you're planning for impermanence. It's not a thing you borrow. It's a symbol of roots of routine, of mornings filled with cereal and lost shoes and we're gonna be late energy. I thought about the child who used it, about the woman in scrubs I'd seen on Street View, waving to someone off camera. Family just trying to live. I knew that kind of life. It's the one I'd spent years building with Mia. And I knew exactly how quietly it could fall apart. She replied within 3 hours. No panic. No accusations. Just, I don't know what this is about. But if it's what I think, I need to know. Please. I'm ready. That word ready stuck with me. Because that's exactly what I hadn't been when I found out. I'd stumbled into the truth like a man tripping over a hidden crack in the sidewalk. But she was walking toward it, head on, brave. We agreed to meet in public, neutral, quiet. Park on the edge of the city. Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. I got there early, parked at a distance, and watched the lot fill slowly with joggers and strollers and the kinds of people who didn't have affairs hiding in their clouds. I spotted her right away, mid-30s, tired but put together. Her hair pulled back in a quick, utilitarian ponytail. She wore scrubs, just like in the photo, layered under a zip-up jacket. A small crossbody bag. No makeup. No attempt to present. She wasn't trying to defend anything. She was here for the truth. When I introduced myself, she just nodded. Melissa, she said, let's just get it over with. We sat on a bench away from the playground. The air was sharp but clean. Fall was burning out into early winter, and the trees around us held on to their last yellow leaves like they knew what was coming. I won't draw it out, I said. Your husband, Colin, is having an affair with my wife. She didn't flinch. Not the way I expected. Just let out a long breath, like she'd been holding it for months. I thought so, she said quietly. I looked at her. You did. Not the specifics, she said. But, yeah, the hours, the excuses, the sudden work trips, the distance, and the way he started showering before hugging our son. He never used to do that. That's when I knew something was off. I reached into my bag and handed her the folder. Not the whole archive, just the essentials. Photos, *TS, calendar entries, text logs, a neatly printed timeline. She didn't cry, didn't speak for almost 10 minutes, just flipped page after page. When she did finally say something, it wasn't what I expected. That's our porch, she said, pointing to the photo of Mia and Colin sitting side by side. He told me he was taking our son to the dentist. She traced the outline of the hammock with her finger. I bought that, she said, from a street vendor in Mexico on our honeymoon. Still no tears, but her face changed, hardened, not rage, not grief, just decision. I'm not going to make a scene, she said, but I do need copies of everything, for legal purposes. Of course, I said. I can send it all. Originals, timestamps, metadata. I've verified it. She gave a small, bitter smile. You're more prepared than most lawyers I've dealt with. I had time, I said. We sat in silence again. Across the park, a child ran toward a swing set, squealing with joy. I tried to remember the last time I'd heard that sound and felt peace instead of panic. Why are you telling me this? She asked finally. Most people would have just moved on, blocked it all out. I thought about that. Could have. But that would have made me the kind of man who protects his peace by leaving someone else in the dark. I guess because I wish someone had told me, I said, before it got as far as it did. She nodded. Not grateful. Just understanding. Thank you for not making this about revenge, she said. Too many people only want to blow things up. You just gave me the fuse. No one deserves to be lied to in their own home, I replied. We exchanged contact info burner emails, just for now. She asked for a week before she made any decisions. I agreed. There was no rush. The damage had already been done. This wasn't about detonating anything. It was about acknowledging the wreckage. We said goodbye. She walked away slowly, back toward her car. Not broken, just changed. Like me. That evening, I opened our shared email again. Mia had forwarded herself a dinner reservation confirmation. I wasn't meant to see it, but the inbox was still synced to an old calendar we used for joint events. I checked the date, her birthday. She'd booked a quiet table at a small place downtown. Upscale but discreet. Not flashy. A table for 4. Me, her, 2 of her closest friends. But that was before I left. Now, I wasn't sure who'd be sitting there. Maybe Colin. Maybe no one. But the date, the exact time, gave me an idea. I spent the next 2 days printing. High-res copies. Sequentially ordered. Labeled. I placed everything in an envelope thick, but flat. No commentary. No cover letter. Just facts arranged like a puzzle that didn't need solving. On the night of her birthday dinner, I got there early. The restaurant was candlelit and narrow, with exposed brick and linen napkins. I walked in, ignored the host, and found the reserved table near the back. No one had arrived yet. I slid the envelope onto Mia's seat. Then I left. No spectacle. No eyes on me. Just the truth. Left in the middle of a celebration that wasn't mine to ruin, because she'd already done that part. On my way home, I stopped at the mailbox and dropped in a second package. This one addressed to Melissa, neatly labeled, prepaid, a mirrored copy of the one I left at the restaurant. The moment felt small, quiet, but not insignificant, like sealing the last page of a chapter before turning it over. The next morning I saw the fallout. Mia didn't text, didn't call, didn't even try to explain. She just vanished from my digital life like a ghost realizing it had been seen. But her Instagram changed. All traces of Colin gone. Photos deleted, like scrubbed. Birthday captions edited to vague, generic quotes. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel much at all. Only confirmation. The lie had shattered, and there was no one left pretending they didn't see the glass on the floor. I left the envelope at her birthday dinner table and walked out before anyone arrived. No need for a scene. Just the truth silently delivered. Later, I heard the fallout through friends. The night unraveled. Colin never showed. Mia left early. No explanations. The silence that followed said everything. I didn't gloat. I didn't reach out. The facts spoke for themselves. That night marked the final shift. From betrayed to free. Weeks passed. Mia's socials went quiet. Colin vanished from them entirely. I signed a lease on a small apartment with warm light and wooden floors. I ran every morning, journaled every night. Rebuilt my finances, my routine, my identity. Reconnected with my brother. No more lies. No more patching cracks. Just my own life, simple, solid, mine. The grief dulled into peace. What began with betrayal ended in clarity. And I was finally steady.